Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is your boy Fitz TV here, aka Lauren33. I'm back here with another video on the channel for you guys, and today we're talking a little bit of Marvel. You guys know I like to do this every once in a while. I like to switch things up, and we're gonna be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp, QUANTUMANIA, and we're gonna be, talking about the film. I'm gonna give you guys my honest thoughts on it. And yeah, so sit back and relax, grab some popcorn, and let's talk a little MCU. I think the last time we did one of these was Wakanda Forever, which was, I believe, back in November. And this is the first big Marvel project of the year. And for the MCU this year, it's the start of Phase 5. A lot of people had mixed thoughts about Phase 4. Phase 4 wasn't perfect, of course. But to me, I think there was more good in Phase 4 than bad. And this video is not about Phase 4, but a lot of people, one of their big problems with Phase 4, of course, they introduced a lot of new characters, but a lot of people got a little bit burnt out. The last 2 years, Marvel has put out more content than it's ever had before, with the mix of TV shows and movies, and it was a lot for some people. Sometimes you would get a movie, and then you'd have the start of a new series, like a week or two right after that, right? And I'm always a big fan of content, but I do think, the MCU did give us a lot the last couple of years, and I think they could have, some of the stuff they could either made into movies, or they just could have saved for later on. Sometimes less is more. And I think that's one takeaway from Phase 4. So I do think in Phase 5, Phase 6, you will see things a little more stretched out and maybe a little less content, just if it leads, better production and better story. But Phase 5, especially for this year in 2023, you're getting a lot of continuation of different stories. Stuff from Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Marvels, right? A lot of the stories you're going to get this year are continuations of stories and franchises that have already been started, right? You're not going to get as much new characters. Of course, they're going to mix it in to continue building the universe as we build up to, Avengers 5 and 6. But for the most part, this year you're getting a lot of characters that you've already been introduced with and you have some kind of connection with. And of course, that's the first thing you're getting here with Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? You're getting the trilogy, the third movie in the Ant-Man franchise, maybe the last one for a while. They definitely could do an Ant-Man 4 if they choose to, but I don't think that would be for, maybe like 4 or 5 years if they choose to continue the franchise. The Ant-Man franchise has always been something that, some people don't take it seriously. The Ant-Man films are usually a little more down to earth, right? A little more casual, but of course, elements like the quantum realm have been very important to, the Avengers movie, like, of course, Avengers Endgame, right? The quantum realm was key in them going back in the past and getting the Infinity Stones to defeat Thanos. But the Ant-Man movies, some of them say people have criticized them for not having as many stakes, but like I said, this is not, as major as, of course, like a Thor franchise or the Black Panther or Spider-Man franchises. These characters are very, very important, and we know that. But the franchise itself has never been viewed as one of the more important films and franchises in the MCU. And Kang was supposed to bring a little bit of a change to that. Kang, we know he's the new Thanos. He's the big main villain of the MCU, especially for this phase, right? Or this arc, the multiverse arc, right? We know he's going to be the main villain of Avengers 5, Kang Dynasty, and most likely the villain of Avengers 6 as well. And they've set him up in Loki, right? And we know he'll be back in Loki too. But this was supposed to be, like, of course, the big film that really introduces people to Kang, and that's supposed to help the Ant-Man film. And I think it did. This was not, before we get into more of the specifics, this is a watchable film, but if I'm being honest, it's not the best of the MCU films. I saw it twice. I saw it on Thursday for the Thursday night previews. I also saw it again on Monday on President Days with a couple of my friends. Like I said, it's a mid film. It's not a horrible film, but it's not a really good film. It's a film that yes, you can watch on Disney Plus and get through it. But it's not a film that you're probably not gonna want to watch a second time. You know, some of the humor just doesn't hit right for me. Some of the writing decisions I think are just a little bit poor, especially near the end of this film. Um, and those are like some of the script, like the characters, they did their job. The cast did their job, but I feel like the script could have been a little bit better, a little more polished up. um it's not a horrible film or anything. It's just mid. you know um some of the good things, the music was great. The final battle was, it was pretty enjoyable. It's your typical Marvel final battle, but still, it was a good final battle for the most part, until like that very very end where I got pissed off. The visuals, like the them bringing the quantum realm to life, was really really cool. um and the main cast, like, Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Kang was amazing, Jonathan Majors. Those three did their job, right? Especially Kang. Kang, he's already one of my favorite villains in the MCU, and Jonathan Majors' performance is amazing. He's elevating himself to, his Hollywood stock is rising right now, with, this performance in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and then, of course, Creed 3 coming out. His stock just continues to rise, and that's really cool to see. Especially, I love seeing a black actor, doing big things. He's the big villain of this of Phase 4, 5, and 6, and that's really really cool to see. Jonathan Majors is the highlight of this film easily, and we'll get into him in a little bit. But for the most part, the film's just made it has its high points. It has some low points, and we'll get into that. But it's not terrible. It's not terrible. But it's not something I would like rewatch over and over again. I've seen it twice. Maybe I'll watch it one more time when it comes out on Disney Plus. But this is not a film that I think I need to go back to like over and over again. Watch it. Numerous times. Maybe if I'm watching like an MCU rewatch to get myself ready for like Avengers 5 and 6, maybe. But that would probably be about it. But yeah, I don't know, for a film that's supposed to start off Phase 5, like, it's just I feel like they could have done better. Remember, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is supposed to end Phase 4. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever doesn't start Phase 5; it ends Phase 4. And after this film, I kind of wanted Wakanda Forever to start Phase 5, but it doesn't. And let's get into it. So really, the hype around this film was mainly because of Kang. Of course, if you're an MCU diehard like me, I love the MCU. I watch almost every MCU film in theaters now. If you're an MCU diehard, right, you're gonna go watch this film, right? If you're like an MCU casual, and you watch the MCU for the most part, but of course, it's the big films that you're most hyped about. You wanted to go see this film because of Kang, right? Everyone knows he's the guy that's the big villain of Phase 4, Phase 5, and Phase 6. So everybody knows that they want to see Kang. They believe that the events of this movie will have a major impact on Avengers 5 and Avengers 6, because we're getting closer and closer. Avengers 5, I believe, is what, 2024, if I'm right. It's either 2024 or 2025. I forget. With all the films that Marvel announces, I forget how close we are. I think it's 2025 supposed to be the next Avengers film, but I could be wrong. But anyway, you want to see Kang, you want to see how this leads into the next Avengers movie, which feels like forever now, right? We got Avengers Endgame in 2019. It's already been almost 4 years, which is insane to think about. But yeah, it's already been almost 4 years since Avengers Endgame came out, right? We all want Avengers 5. So you come to this film, you want to see Kang and see how that sets up for the future, right? And, did this movie deliver to the hype? Kind of. Like I said, if you wanted to watch this film just for Kang, he does deliver. What does frustrate me a little bit is Kang doesn't appear. Like, he appears in the first 2 minutes of the movie. You see him in a flashback with with uh with Hope's mom. I don't know why I'm forgetting her name already. Janet, right? You see in her flashback with Janet and how Janet first meets with Kang, who had just gotten exiled from the court of kings, right? But um, then you don't see Kang for nearly an hour. Like, my first time watching the movie, I got pissed because I wanted Kang. I've been yelling like that nigga Kang and all the social media packages and all the promo material and the trailers. Like, they hype up Kang so much, and you see him for literally 5 seconds at the beginning of the movie, and then you don't see him till about an hour in. Once Kang does introduce himself an hour in, and you get to know him, like, he's everywhere. Like, he dominates the second half of this film, which is good. But I did get a little bit frustrated that you don't see him till halfway through the film, you know? But if you're going to see this film because you're actually hyped for the film, like I said, in my opinion, the film's just mid. It's mid. It delivers at certain areas, and the other areas it just like you're like, what the fuck? I found myself extremely bored in the first hour of this movie. And then the second time around, of course, it was a little bit easier to get through, but still, I felt myself really bored at some parts. Um, I kind of compare it to, if you guys remember, the middle part of Wakanda Forever. That's like the weak part of the film when they're like explaining like Talokan, right? They're going through his backstory and things like that. That's kind of how I felt, during the first hour of this film. It was just, I was just bored for the most part. The first, the first hour of this film is because the plot's really simple, right? The movie starts by getting you quickly caught up on what's going on in Ant-Man's life, right? He's happy. And this, of course, after Endgame, he's happy. Everything's going well for the most part with his relationship with Cassie. Cassie is a very eager young person, who wants to help out people, of course, and she kind of got that desire after, not having her father around for 5 years, right? Because she wasn't blipped. And she has this desire to help people, just like how Ant-Man saved the world. And Ant-Man, he's just kind of he's kind of chilling. He's a famous author, he's an Avenger, right? And he's not doing much. He's just mainly chilling for the most part. Hope is, running her father's old company, right? And everything's going well between Hope and Scott. They're, the great relationship, all that good stuff. And they get sucked into the quantum realm, right? Because basically Kang basically spots Cassie has a signal that leads into the quantum realm, right? Kang notices this and basically sucks them in. And basically, the movie's about because they get split up. Hope gets split up with her, Hope's with her parents, and Scott's with Cassie. Basically, it's just them, trying to get back together so they can get out of there. But they, meet a bunch of people, and then of course they run into Kang, who is trying to escape out of the quantum realm. Right, that's the basic plot of it. It's a simple plot for the most part, right? The plot didn't need to be. I wasn't expecting the plot to be that complex. But one thing I did notice on my first watching of the movie is, of course, Kevin Feige lied to us. Usually, this happens in almost every Marvel film. There's a point where, something happens or a decision is made that catches you off guard, right? But the thing about it is, they don't do that in this film. If you look at the trailers basically tease that part of the plot would be that Kang would try to convince Ant-Man to help him, right? And what Kang would give him the 5 years back that they lost, right? Remember, Ant-Man was stuck in the quantum realm. He wasn't blimped, but he was stuck in the quantum realm when Thanos snapped. And basically, when he got out, it had been 5 years, right? Since since he had shrank, since he had been in the quantum realm. He had lost 5 years, the same amount of time that everyone was blipped. So basically, the trailers hint that Kang would help give Ant-Man those 5 years back. That time that he lost with his daughter. When you watch this film, the film doesn't do that at all. It has, there's no dialogue at all about Kang trying to give Ant-Man more time. So clearly, Kevin Feige, fooled us. They filmed those scenes specifically just for the trailer. And we all went into the movie expecting one thing, and we got something completely different, which, I was like, damn, Kevin Feige got us. When I realized that, I was like, we really fell for the Kevin Feige trick, but it's whatever. Right? But like I said, the plot is pretty simple for the most part. They explain, how Kang got into the quantum realm. Basically, of course, he got kicked out of the Court of Kangs, right? And I do wish they gave a little more backstory for our Kang. For the most, of course, he's angry that he got kicked out and he got sent into the quantum realm, and he promises revenge on everybody that did him wrong. They talk about a little bit how he's killed many Avengers and he's destroyed many worlds, but remember, he's one of many Kangs in the multiverse, and he believes that he's the Kang that needs to end it all. He's the smart, he's the ultimate Kang, right? Remember, we also had the He Who Remains Kang from Loki season 1. Remember when Sylvie kills him, that frees, that unleashes all of Kang's variants, right? And we'll talk about the post-credit scene a little bit later. But they explain that, but I did wish that they went more into Kang's backstory. And for the most part, that's that. But outside of that, I was fine with Kang. He was fantastic. Already one of my favorite MCU villains. He's up there with Thanos and Killmonger and Loki, right? Of course, Kang's true legacy and what Jonathan Majors, does with his character, will be determined, of course, of what happens in Loki season 2, Avengers 5, Avengers 6, and if he's in any other projects, right? Because we're still just, gracing the surface of what we can do with Kang. But I think as we get into more films and deeper into Phase 5, we'll get to see more of Kang and, how dangerous he is. The Kang we see in this film, it is teased that he dies at the end, but I hope not. I don't think he's dead, unless Kevin Feige says it, right? And even if Kevin Feige says, I don't know if we can believe him. Kevin Feige lies to us all the time. But if Kang is dead, that would piss me off, because I do love the version of Kang that we got in this film, because there's tons of variants of Kang out there, and I don't know how much I'm into this, dealing with a bunch of different variants with all different personalities. Yes, it's still Kang, but they all have different personality traits, and I want there to be a centered Kang, a main Kang. That's, the one that we have the most connection with, right? Because one of the best things about Thanos is you have a connection with him. If you like him or not, they make you connect with him on some level. And then either you like him or you don't, and that's why the Thanos you see in Endgame, right? He's a younger version of Thanos from Infinity War, but, he's mainly the same, and he has a deeper sense of understanding. So that's one of the things that makes Thanos great. He evolves, he adapts, I want that with Kang. I don't want to just get to know a bunch of different versions of Kang, Like, that's gonna get confusing, and I don't know if I'll enjoy that. That's my opinion on the matter. But yeah, Kang gets exiled into the quantum realm, and basically he Janet helps him regain his powers for the most part, but it's not until Janet reads his mind, touching the device, that she realizes that Kang's actually a monster, and there's a reason why he was exiled into the quantum realm. And then before Kang could kill her, Janet uses pin particles to enlarge the core, which is what Kang needs to get out of the quantum realm. All right, but it basically Janet using the pin particles makes it like a prison for him, right? Where almost they're both stuck. We know that Janet gets out in the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, but Kang is still stuck in there, and basically he's building an empire because he can't get out. But then eventually, when he learns of Ant-Man and them having pin particles, he sees this is his chance to actually get out, right? Because he wants to win, and he believes he's the one that knows best how to end it all, right? The multiverse, what's at the end, even though it's his variants that cause all the chaos across the multiverse anyway. So the plot is simple for the most part. I'm not too angry at the plot. Like I expected more of a simple plot. You don't get in Marvel now. You don't get those crazy plots all the time. You got to pick and choose where you think the plot's gonna be like complex, right? Like I think, like for example, Secret Invasion, which is the next project, which I forget when the movie's coming or when the show's starting. I believe it starts in March, but I could be wrong. But Secret Invasion, I expect that to be a little more of a complex part, or complex plot, because that's the show we're all waiting for, right? And of course, if you read the Secret Invasion comics, you know how crazy that can get. But for a film like this, I'm not expecting a crazy plot at all. Um, so yeah, but getting into like the characters themselves, for the most part, Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd. He's funny in this film, right? I don't. One confusion that I had, and I can say the same thing about Evangeline Lilly's character, the Wasp, right? I'm trying to figure what's their character arc, really. I'm not saying they don't have development in this film, but they don't really have much of a character arc. This is like a family film. We know that they love each other, right? Hope, Scott, Cassie, Janet, and Hank. They're like a 5-person family in a way, and it's a bond that's grown through these 3 movies, right? But I don't really know what the character arc is for the most part. It's like this is more like a family film, like you can like for the most part Scott and Hope are the same characters, like from the beginning to the end. They just more like the family just grows closer for the most part. Of course Cassie wants to be this hero, kind of like her dad. Like she looks at her dad as an inspiration, and she wants to be a kind of adventurer that helps people, right? But and Scott just wants to protect her daughter or his daughter, and there's that brings a little bit of conflict, but for the most part, it's like the events of going down into the quantum realm and facing Kang and MODOK and all that, it just makes them grow closer. But it's not much of like really of a character arc for the most part. But of course, Paul is fine as Ant-Man, right? I really do. I liked at the end of the final battle. There's a part where Scott goes big. He gets huge, right? And he's like charging Kang's fortress, and then he's like, "Kang, our word is our bond. Where's my daughter?" I did like that because you could feel the energy that Paul Rudd was bringing there. I did think that was a really cool moment. Maybe one of his best moments as Ant-Man. And he's calling like Kang like a son of a bitch, and I enjoy that. Hope is fine. Like I said, I really do enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp and their romance. I do think that we don't have many couples in the MCU. The MCU is not too big on love and all that. You get attached to these characters, and here and there you get your moments. Ant-Man and the Wasp, they've been a couple that's been going since the first movie. Remember, they kiss at the end of the first movie, then they date for a little bit, right? Then of course when Scott gets put in jail in Civil War, they break up. Then they get back together in Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? And then they're happily together in Ant-Man 3. I'm surprised they didn't do anything like they get married or something in this movie. But the Ant-Man and the Wasp, like their dynamic it's very very cool. There's some cool moments like where when Ant-Man's going for the core, right? And like he, with the probability and all the different like Ant-Mans are all over the place, right? And he's struggling. You just see the Wasp come in and save him, right? And then of course at the end when Kang almost kills Ant-Man to and escapes the quantum realm, Wasp comes in at the last second, and they team up to take down Kang. And even though they tease that he gets killed, but I don't think he's dead. Things like that. Uh but like I said, I enjoy their dynamic. They're fine, for the most part. Nothing really to complain about when it comes to, I'm just a little confused on what was the character arc for those two characters. This film is mainly about Ant-Man, Hope, Ant-Man the Wasp, and Kang. Cassie, played by Catherine Newton. My thing is this: I know that Ant-Man the Wasp, right? Cassie is young. I forget how old, but she's still pretty young for the most part. Not super young, but she's like at least probably 10 maybe if I'm being nice. Um, but then of course the events of Infinity War happen, and then she's blimped, right? And she comes back, or she's not blimp, but her father's blimp, and then they come back. She's 5 years older, right? So Catherine Newton, she's 26. Yeah, and I don't know, her acting in this movie just like I was iffy about it. But here's my thing. Was she trying to play a Cassie that's supposed to be like 15, 16 years old? Because if that is the character she was supposed to be playing, that makes sense, right? Because Cassie in this movie, the way she plays her, she sounds like your typical 16-year-old. Her voice is high pitched. She's a little bit emotional, right? She's not the most intelligent. And, that's fine if that's what, Catherine was trying to play. If she's trying to play like a 16-year-old Cassie, that makes sense. If it's not, I didn't notice that it was bothering me. But, like, if that actually is the case, then, that would make a lot more sense in my opinion. But yeah, outside of that, she was okay. There was some bad scripting with her, especially the "I'm not a dick" thing with MODOK, which we'll get into. MODOK was that was something. Um, Bill Murray as Lloyd Kyler. He doesn't do much in this film. He has that kind of like 5-6 minute interaction with Janet, right? And they talk about how basically Janet slept with Lloyd Kyler while they're in the quantum realm, which that wasn't too much of a surprise. Her character was down there for 30 years, right? She probably thought she was never getting out, so it was like kind of makes sense for her to move on. And then we also learned that Hank was sleeping around during the 30 years that him and Janet were apart. So that was actually some of the funniest stuff in the film, right? But yeah, Bill Murray, he did his lines. He was there. It was cool to see him, and then he was gone. Right? Like I said, for the most part, most of these characters in this film do not matter outside of Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Kang. That's really what this movie, boils down to. But Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne, she's fine. I don't really have too much. She does play a big role because of course she was in the quantum realm for 30 years and she knows who Kang is and Kang knows who she is. So right, so that does play a pretty big dynamic. But like I said, she does her job and just, that's that. Like Janet and Hank, right? I'm surprised. My prediction was that one of these two characters would die. They teased that, of course, Ant-Man was going to die in the trailers, especially at how much he was getting his ass whooped by Kang. But I thought, of course, usually, all these Marvel movies, at least one major character from the cast passes away, right? It's usually one of the more characters that you have a little less feeling to. I thought it was going to be like Hank or Janet, I thought Hank. Honestly, I thought it was gonna be Hank that was gonna, you know, uh, die during this film, but he didn't. The whole all five of them get through it. Um, and then Michelle Pfeiffer, she's fine as Janet. Um, Michael Douglas is Hank Pym, right? Yeah, you could notice he was wearing like hearing aids. I think he, I forget how old Michael Douglas is now. I'm looking at Google, right? He's 78 years old. He's 78 years old. Um, but yeah, I did like Michael Douglas in this film. Yeah, he didn't have to do too much for the most part. They kept his acting and his the movements he had to do pretty simple. Um, but I think my favorite part is near the end in the final battle when, like, of course, the ants, all of Hank's ants, they sneak. They're like it's still mind boggling to me. So these ants have the intelligence to basically go into the quantum realm and save Hank and the rest of the gang. Basically, which is, I find funny, but I think it makes sense a little bit if you read the comics. And then, of course, the ants, they attack Kang, and they actually almost take out by themselves. But there's a funny moment where Hank is walking with the ants, and he's just staying there, just like staring down Kang. I enjoyed that. Um, there's also funny moments where, like, they're talking to the people in the quantum realm, and then the drink like this red ooze, to like basically be able to communicate with them in their native language. And like I love how Hank like asks the bartender, like, "Hey, can I get a drink that's gonna get me like drunk?" I enjoyed that. you know um but yeah, Hank, Michael Douglas, he does his job. It sucks we didn't get Lewis in this film from Michael Pena. He was one of my favorite parts of the first two Ant-Man films. I don't remember why he specifically was in the film. I don't know if it was a contract situation or something else. um I did miss not having I miss having Lewis in this film. We did get a very, very short cameo from Randall Park. Very, very short. You guys remember Randall Park, Jimmy Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp, right? He's at the beginning of the film talking to Scott for like 5 seconds. So that was a cool Easter egg. Blink and you miss it. Uh, they had William Jackson Harper as Quaz. I think I'm saying his name correctly. Quaz. But he doesn't do much. He does his lines really. Basically, he has the ability to read minds at any time. He can read someone's thoughts and what they're thinking. Uh so he has his lines, but he doesn't do much. That's a lot. That's one of my things with this film. The supporting cast doesn't do much. Of course, yes, they had like the final battle at the end against Kang's army, right? And I said the final battle was fine, but you don't really have much of you don't have much of a connection with these characters outside of Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Kang, right? Of course, yes, you have Hank and Janet because they were in the other films, but outside of that, you don't have any too much of a connection with these other characters. Um, there was a character, Janitora. She's a badass and she's beautiful. She was played by, I had to do a little bit of research. She was played by Caddy M. O'Brien. I don't know. We probably won't see her return, in the future unless they do another like Ant-Man film or something in the quantum realm. But she was good, you know. Like, I did enjoy her performance, even though it didn't matter too much for the most part. But hey, that's really what it is. But for the most part, that's mainly the main cast. For the most part, that's everyone that had a somewhat of an important role. A lot of these characters in the quantum realm were, of course, CGI and green screened and everybody, right? Because they depicted the quantum realm to be this place with a bunch of different characters, right? Different people that are you would never see on Earth. So most of these people are people you would never see on in space or as aliens. It's completely different races of people. Um, I did a freaking Modoc. Oh, I forgot that's the guy I was thinking about. So you guys remember from Ant-Man 1, searching up the name of the actor just to make sure I give you guys the right name. Ant-Man 1, Corey Stoll, he played Darren Cross, right? I forget what was the name of his character. Was it Blue Jacket or Yellow Jacket, I believe, right? He was the main villain of the first Ant-Man movie, if you guys remember, near the end. Scott is able to shrink him and send him into the quantum realm. And we learned that, of course, he's been there all this time, right? While Ant-Man and, Scott's got to live his life. He's went into the quantum realm, and basically he was supposed to die, but Kang found him and, remade him, right? Saved his life, remade him, and he's remade into MODOK, a mechanism of, I forget what it is. He's basically a killing machine. Um, Mechanism only designed of Kale. I forget. I'm sorry, guys. I forget what MODOK's supposed to stand for, even though they say it multiple times in the movie. Of course, MODOK, if you are a huge Marvel comic book person, right? MODOK is somebody you know. But I said this MODOK was bad. I understand that, of course, they wanted to tie it to, of course, for people that have watched all three Ant-Man movies and kind of, tie it all together, which I don't blame them for doing. But they really, really, like, they fucked up on MODOK, man. For the most part, MODOK's just a comedic joke. And he's just cringe on scene, on screen, and I'm just like, what the hell? Of course, he's talking crap. He wants to pay back on Ant-Man. He wants to pay back on Hank a little bit, right? He doesn't kill anybody, but he wants payback on them for the most part. But he has to also remember that he works for Kang, who has uses for that for those characters. But the worst part of MODOK really comes at the end. So he's trying to kill Cassie for the majority of the final battle, but Cassie's able to, quickly adapt to her suit and the powers, and she's able to basically, she makes herself big and basically punches MODOK almost nearly unconscious. And then all of a sudden, MODOK's talking crap at every turn, and Cassie just tells MODOK, stop being a dick, right? You don't need to be whatever this is, And MODOK's like, what do I, like, I don't know what to be. And Cassie's like, stop being a dick. And that was probably the worst line of the film. It's meant to be a comedic line, but it just doesn't hit at all to me. And of course, it didn't hit to my friends who I was there with. It's just, I just found it weak. Don't be a dick. Like, I've probably heard that 3 or 4 times in other movies. It was just like what? What are we doing here? And then afterwards, MODOK flips sides and tries to kill Kang, but Kang uses a blast that basically ends up fatally wounding him, and then he ends up dying. But afterwards, before he passes, right, he's talking to Ant-Man and Hope and them, and then he's like, well, we've always been friends. And then, I'm like, wait, what? Like, no, you guys haven't. You tried to kill this guy in 2 of the 3 Ant-Man movies, And then maybe the worst line of the film is when he's like, at least I got to die an Avenger. And I'm like sitting there like, holy shit, how bad can this actually get? And I'm just like, what are we doing here? But yeah, MODOK was really disappointing. I went out on a limb and said that the version of MODOK that we got in this film was better than or not this film, the MODOK that we got in the Avengers game. I'm not even talking about the comics or the TV show. I said that the MODOK that we got in the Avengers game was better than the MODOK we got in this movie. And like, I don't know, we'll see MODOK return. This is what they chose to do for his MCU character, right? And like I said, I see why they did it and what they were trying to go for, but it just doesn't hit at all, in my opinion. And it was just awfully a disappointment and almost like a waste of what, of what MODOK's supposed to be. And I didn't like it. I did not like what they did with Modak at all. At all. That was honestly probably the worst part of the film. Um, really quick, I want to talk about my favorite moments from the film. Right. Like I said, I'll be honest. The first part, I said this earlier. The first hour of the film is really boring for me. Like I'm just sitting there, like, okay, can we get more Kang? Can we get some more explanation here? Right. And I would say probably my three favorite scenes. My three favorite scenes. The first one is Kang's conversation with Ant Man. Right. Of course, if you watched, I said this earlier. If you watched the trailer for the movie and you watch the movie itself, the dialogue is completely different. Kevin Feige actually fooled us. But the scene of Kang talking to Ant Man and Cassie while he has them locked up is perfect. Kang comes out like a total badass, total badass. Um, and I love how he's about to kill Cassie, like, and he's like telling him like, "Oh, if you don't do this, like, I don't care if you like me or not. If you don't do this, I will kill your daughter." And then I will make you replay that moment over and over again until you beg me to kill you, right? And then he's like saying, "Do you think I'm lying? Do I look like a liar to you?" And I'm just like, holy shit. I love Jonathan Majors. I know some people will give the critique that Jonathan Majors maybe tries a little bit too hard with his acting, right? I can definitely see, some people saying like, oh, there's sometimes where he doesn't have to put all this into the performance, but I love it. I love the passion that he brings to the character, right? You can tell he truly, truly cares about delivering a organic performance that people are going to enjoy, and I think it's great, right? But I love that scene, and that dialogue he has with Ant Man. Like there's a moment where Ant Man goes like, I'm an Avenger. And he's like, you're an Avenger. So I've killed you before. And he asks, like, are you the one with the hammer? Like, he's, of course, alluding to Thor. And then Ant-Man's like, no, no, that's not. But people get us confused all the time with, muscles and all that. I'm like, that's funny. But yeah, that's a great scene. Um, Later, of course, I mentioned earlier, it's the scene where Ant-Man has to shrink down to the size to get into the core, so he can find the piece that Kane needs, right, to escape the quantum realm. And of course, that's the scene where he's facing the possibility factor. And he's like going up against like all the different versions of himself, like all the decisions he would be making in that situation. And then he I love how, of course, it starts off with all the Ant-Mans not being able to work together, but then he gets motivated by Cassie, and then like they all work together to lift Ant-Man up, the main Ant-Man, our Ant-Man, and he gets so close to getting to the core itself, but then it doesn't work. But then the Wasp comes in for the save, and they work together to get the core down. That was a really cool scene, right? Ant-Man's like, "Are you real?" And the Wasp is like, "I'm real." That was cool. And the last scene, the really the final battle, like towards the end. So there's a part. The final battle is in different sections, but there's this is almost like two scenes in a way, but I'll include it as one. There's a scene where it's Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Cassie. I don't know what's the name of Cassie, if Cassie has like a hero name yet, but Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Cassie go up against Kang, and Kang just absolutely whoops them. Right? It's like 3-on-1, and Kang just takes them out, which was really cool. And one thing I've noticed, because Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the fighting is kind of mid, if I'm being honest. That's one of the critiques I would have on that film. I loved Wakanda Forever, but it's a little bit mid when it comes to the fighting scene, especially the end. It's not awful, but there's definitely room for improvement. I don't know if that's the way it would have been if Chadwick Boseman, was still with us. But still, that's just one of my critiques. The combat in this movie, especially towards the end, is really really good. I love the Kang, 3-on-1. I'm not gonna compare it to Thanos versus Iron Man and Cap and Thor from Endgame, but it is an enjoyable 3-on-1. And then the last scene really is the end. Right near the end, it's basically they all get out of the quantum realm except for Scott, who's staying back and fights Kang, and I love it. First of all, like you'd see like Kang's his what's it called? His armor he gets ripped, and you can see how massive Jonathan Major's soldiers are, which is they're just massive, they're just huge, right? And then this the fight between him and Ant-Man. You gotta remember, Ant-Man knows his combat. Remember, he was trained in the first Ant-Man movie by the Wasp. So the hand-to-hand combat at the end, for the most part, Ant-Man's getting his ass whooped, but he's able to get some punches in here and there and hold his own, right? And I love it with the kick Jonathan Majors, like when he destroys Ant-Man's helmet, right? Like you could feel the kick, like it's like damn, like Jonathan Majors is pounding everything. He's like giving his all there. And then there's the same part of it where he like punches Scott in the chest and he's getting internal bleeding and everything. And I'm just like, it's just gold. Really, really good hand-to-hand combat from Paul Rudd and Jonathan Majors. I don't know if that was Paul Rudd doing it or if it was a stunt double, but I enjoyed it. And then at the end, right, Scott or Kang's like, you thought you could win, and then Ant-Man's like, no, I don't have to win. We both just have to lose, right? Which is near one of them getting out. But then right where it looks like Kang is about to get out, the Wasp comes in and makes the save, saves her hubby, which is really cool. And then they destroyed the core one more time. They completely destroyed this time. And it makes it, Kang actually falls into the core. And it makes you believe that Kang dies when the core explodes, but you see him disappear first, then the core explodes. So you don't know if he got transferred somewhere else before that. And that's my theory. I think Kang's still out there, but they want to make you believe that he's not alive, similar to what they did with Wanda and Doctor Strange. But that that's my opinion. That's the way I'm looking at it. But yeah, that was my favorite scene, and I did enjoy like how you see Scott and Hope. They tell each other that they love each other. They're always there for one another. That was cute. I ship, like I said, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think they're one of the best, and not the best MCU couples. Like we need more MCU couples. Like come on. But then what pissed me off, the only thing that pissed me off is I thought what they were doing, because you see the portal back to Earth close, and you just see Ant-Man and the Wasp. I thought they were setting it up like Ant-Man and the Wasp make the ultimate sacrifice, right? By saving each other, they get stuck in the quantum realm together, and that would, kind of keep them out of the mix until like Avengers 5 or Avengers 6, and then they would come together. Like maybe, like of course, like when the final battle comes against Kang and his army, you just see like Ant-Man and the Wasp like walk out of the quantum realm with like the quantum army, right, all ready to fight Kang. I thought that's what they were setting up, but no. 2 minutes later, they open up the portal and they're like, "Let's go home," and it's like it's a happy ending, right? So that got me pissed off, because I got emotional at the end when I saw the Wasp save Ant-Man, because I was like, she's willing to, get stuck in the quantum realm with her man, right? Get separated from her family, get separated from Earth and everything else. She's willing to put it on the line just for Ant-Man, right? And I thought, all right, real stakes. Ant-Man and the Wasp get stuck into the quantum realm. W movie. That's what being an Avenger is, making the ultimate sacrifice, right? Just like Tony Stark did at the end of Endgame. But no, they open up the portal 2 minutes later and they go home, happy ending, whatever. And it's like, that kind of hurt it for me. But for the most part, like I enjoyed the final battle, but that pissed me off. If I'm being honest, that got me a little bit heated. Um, but hey, it is what it is. And the last thing I'll mention is, where does this go from here? Right? They make you believe that the king, that they spent most of the movie building up. They make you believe, or they want you to believe, that he's dead, right? But but like I said, he disappears before the core completely blows up. You know, if he was truly dead, he would have just blew up right away. That's why I'm thinking that there's still a chance that he might be alive, and we'll see him return in Avengers 5, right? Because the first post-credit scene, the movie ends with Ant-Man, kind of, freaking out a little bit. He believes that maybe King's still alive, because he remembers that King told him that if he didn't get out of the quantum realm, everyone would die. So, Ant-Man's kind of like freaking out a little bit, like, yes, they were able to stop King, but did they make the right decision? Because did they just set up something even worse? So that leads into the first post-credit scene, and then you see the King of Courts, or the Kang's Court, right? Or the Court of Kang, whatever you want to call it. And then you see a bunch of Kangs from all different types, all different timelines, right? Forming together as, they believe they have to get together to protect the multiverse. Remember, now that all of Kang's variants are free to run wild, they've been causing trouble and excursions all over the multiverse, right? Thousands and thousands of different timelines and worlds all are getting sucked together or destroyed, right? Because of what all the Kangs are doing. After what Thanos did in Endgame, they never thought it would affect the multiverse as a whole. So that's why, I guess that kind of explains why we didn't see Kang while Thanos was doing his stuff. Right? But now, they're seeing what Ant-Man is doing, and they're talking about how, Immortal killed a Kang, right? And they view this as a threat, because they see that, oh, if they're able to kill one of us, that could be dangerous, especially with everything that they built with this multiverse. So they're setting it up, of course, in Avengers 5, where we're gonna see the Avengers, right, all across not only Earth but space and maybe even the multiverse itself. They're gonna be facing, versions of Kang from everywhere. Right, different timelines. It's gonna be a madhouse, right? And it's not that I hated the post credit scene, but I'm like, it's like what I said earlier. I'm fine with having Kang variants, but we need to have a main Kang, right? We need to have like a main Kang that we look to as like the leader, the main, one of them all. And I think the one from Ant-Man, the one that we saw in this movie that they want to make you believe is dead, I still think he's alive and he's still gonna be a factor. Right, but if he's not, if the Ant-Man we saw in this movie is really, or if the Kang we saw in this movie is really dead, that's a little bit of a problem in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that means like when we get to Ant-Man 5, we're gonna have all these different Kangs from different timelines, and we're not gonna know which one that we're most connected to. We're just gonna view them as variants after variant after variant, which that could be a problem. I do think we need a main King that we are mostly attached to, right? And because that's going to be better for the movies and better for his journey. So that's part of the reason why I believe the Kang we saw at the end of this movie, I still think he's alive, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, I didn't, but you can see they're setting things up for Ant-Man 5, or not Ant-Man 5, Avengers 5, with all the Kangs, and they're going to cause havoc all over the multiverse, and our Avengers are going to have their hands full. But definitely, you can see they're setting it up. Of course, the last post-credit scene was for Loki Season 2. We see Loki and we see Owen. They're watching Kang at a show, right? And you just see, Kang there talking about time. It clearly looks like they're in like a 1950s, 1960s, something like that. But and we don't know if this is a variant, or we don't know if this is the Kang that we already knew, right? That we just met from the Ant-Man movie. We don't know what version of Kang it is. I'm super pumped for Ant-Man, or for Loki Season 2, which I believe is coming out later this year. I think it's gonna be awesome, but we don't know. Like I said, we don't know yet what the plan is for Loki. With that King. As we get closer, of course, we'll see, and it should be good. But right now, we have zero clue what to expect from that. But yeah, for the most part, like I said, this is not a bad film. It's not a horrible film. It's definitely something you can watch, on Disney Plus when it comes out. But for me, it's more of a one and done. Like, it's not something I'm gonna go back and watch over and over again, multiple times. It's not a terrible film, but it's not a really good film, right? It has its moments. It has its lows, right? Which I talked about some of those. But it's a film definitely I think you can sit down and watch. And I think it's like, all right, that was here, and of course everyone's entitled to their own opinion. You could say, oh, it's okay, that was okay, or that was or some will actually say it's really bad. Right? I know it's not doing the best on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's not a horrible film that's unwatchable. It's just not my favorite, really. But of course, I think Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly, they do their thing as Ant-Man and the Wasp. Right, the supporting cast is just whatever, really. And of course, the star of this film is Kang. Kang is awesome, and I definitely hope we get this version of Kang more going forward. But we'll see. We'll see what they have in store for us. I don't know where to really rank this film in terms of my MCU list. Right, like I had Wakanda Forever at number 8. Right now, I believe this is film number 31 in the MCU. We're not, like I said, we don't count the TV shows or anything, but this is film number 31. So I don't know. Just to give you guys context, on my list currently, I have Ant-Man and the Wasp at number 23, and I have Ant-Man 1 at number 24. So, if I'm being honest, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania might go right around there when I'm looking at the list. I don't know if it's good enough to be in the top 20. I got to think about it a little bit more, but it's somewhere in the 20. It's like somewhere on my MCU list, somewhere from like 19 to around 25. It's definitely better than the worst MCU movies like Thor 1, Thor 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Captain Marvel, right? Eternals, those movies, but it's not really that high after that in my opinion. But I don't know, I'll think about it and I'll let you guys know once I've officially ranked it. But it's going somewhere in the 19 to 25 range in my opinion. Like, not awful, but not super good. But that's just my opinion. In the comment section, guys, make sure you guys let me know what you guys thought of the film. Where do you guys rank it in your MCU list, right? And how do you guys think about this? How did this start off Phase 5, right? We have Secret Invasion to look forward to, which should be great. But it is what it is. It is what it is. It's going to be a big year for the MCU with Phase 5 beginning as we slowly get ready for Avengers 5. And, hopefully things pick up. We got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which looks actually pretty good. We got Loki Season 2, Secret Invasion, right? The Marvels later on. So still a lot to look forward to. Even if you didn't like Ant-Man 3, let me know in the comment section and why. But there's still a lot to look forward to going into the rest of the year for the MCU. So let me know what you guys are pumped about. But other than that, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for chilling with me. I know this was a long podcast, but that's what we do when we make a Let's Be Honest video. You guys know I can talk. You guys know I'm going to give you what's on my mind. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Hit the bell next to my name, Fitz.TV, so you guys are notified every time I post a new video. I'm going to get out of here. Follow me on social media. The links are in the description down below. I'll see you guys later. Stay safe and healthy, y'all. Peace.